On this episode, we chat to Dr. Natthawat Hongkarnjanakul from Thailand's Geo-Informatics and Space Technology Development Agency.
So if you're like us and never thought about the connection between Thailand and a space program, you'll learn a lot in this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee Krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 and discovered that it's actually quite easy to get used to the heat as long as you have a fan blowing on you 24/7.
True that. Yeah. And I am Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago, fell in love with the Thai proclivity to why anyone or anything that they need help from, so I never left.
Yeah, anything, even a buffalo.
That's right. I mean, I love that recent photo of, I don't even know what the whole story was, but there were two huge buffalo like in the middle of the road, and these Thai cops are trying to encourage them to move. And I think those things are kind of dangerous. And then
they're like hippopotamuses.
They're huge.
Hippopotami?
And the cops are talking. Like there's actually a video where the Thai cops are talking to them like, "Excuse me, like could you please move off the road?" But they're also bowing to the buffalo, and I just love it. So, listeners,
stick or carrot, man.
Yeah,
a carrot.
Yeah, listeners, we'll see if we can post a photo for you. But it's a charming aspect of Thai culture.
Right.
We want to say a quick thank you to one of our patrons, Leo Karanen, who supports us at the show shout-out level. Stick around after we're done talking to a real Thai space scientist to hear why Leo makes even the most adventurous listener sound like an expert couch potato.
Yeah, me included.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons like Leo also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about the adventure of Greg's knee joint versus a cortisone injection and an MRI machine, the ongoing saga of should have been a PM Pita, and the surprising verdict in a court case that went in his favor, and a discussion on the huge land bridge project that would make Thailand a big boy on the block when it comes to international logistics, but at a cost of 1.3 trillion baht. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
It's a lot of baht.
Heck yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy baht. Also, don't forget, if you listen to us on Spotify, you can now hear all of the bonus shows there as well. If you're a patron, simply link your Patreon account to your Spotify account and add our new feed titled Bangkok Podcast Badass Patrons Only, with updated artwork, I might mention, to hear the regular and bonus shows in the same place.
Heck yeah.
All right, well, in this episode, we have a pretty cool guest who has a job that's quite unique and not something that I think most of us know much about. Now, we're happy to welcome Dr. Natthawat Hongkarnjanakul, who is a space innovation development expert at GISTDA, which obviously is the Geo-Informatics and Space Technology Development Agency. That's quite a mouthful, but just for simplicity's sake, we'll say that GISTDA is to Thailand what NASA is to the USA. Now, if you're like me, you don't usually equate Thailand with a space program, but they do indeed have one, and it does some pretty cool stuff. Dr. Natthawat is involved in developing some of the satellites and associated support infrastructure that Thailand has above us, which monitor everything from coastal erosion to illegal logging to the quality of the air that we're currently trying to breathe. So to explain how all of that works and how anyone within the borders of Thailand benefits from the work he and his team do, here is my conversation with Dr. Natthawat Hongkarnjanakul. All right. Well, I am talking to my brand new friend, a person I'm very excited to talk to, Dr. Natthawat Hongkarnjanakul. He is a space innovation development expert at the Geo-Informatics Space Technology Development Agency. Doctor, welcome to the Bangkok podcast.
Afternoon, Greg, and very happy to let me in for Bangkok podcast.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that you have time to talk to me because I don't know how many space scientists listen to the podcast, but I was just chatting with you briefly, and I said that when people think of Thailand, space is not something that they normally think about. It's usually beaches
Yeah.
and monks and things like that. So
hmm
I wanted to learn more about this side of things because there's some really cool things being done. But first of all, can you talk a little bit about yourself and your education and how you got into aerospace and your current work role?
Okay, actually, myself, I have the aerospace engineering background. I had my bachelor in aerospace engineering from Kasetsai University, you know, and then I got the French scholarship. Actually, that attached to the space program in Thailand called POS1 almost 20 years ago.
Hmm.
For that scholarship is kind of the government to government contract, and they gave the scholarship to Thai students as well. So I got that one to continue my master and my PhD in France.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, okay.
So yeah, and that's still aerospace engineering, but my background is like based on the aerostructures and composite structures, mostly related to space.
Yeah, and I looked up some of the research papers that you have written, and I could barely understand the titles, let alone the actual content of them. So it's pretty high level stuff.
Yeah, so actually, anything that you go deeply in, like in research topic, like in engineering, it's like quite specific word and specific term. So for me, I think it's more like the author that they have deeply in specific field. But like like you mentioned in Thailand, there might not many people that study the thing related to aerospace.
Right, right. It's pretty specific. It's sort of like someone who specializes in making just one specific type of product, and it's extremely specific and used for one machine in one country or something like that. So these type of professions are usually pretty hyper specific. Someone with your background could probably work in a lot of different places. How did
Mhm.
you end up at it's called GISTDA?
As I mentioned earlier, that the contract for space program in Thailand was started about 20 years ago, and that was the government to government contract. So between Thai government and French government. Since I got that scholarship, so I have to go back to GISTDA for the space program in Thailand, and that bond with GISTDA itself at the beginning that when I took the scholarship. So I began my career about 10 years ago. So as a researcher, and then I was the head of space collaboration and connectivity. And last year, I was the director of space technology development office. And right now, I turn back to like more technical, more academic in space innovation development expert.
So there's a long history between Thailand and France in sort of exploring the space field.
Yeah. So in fact, if you imagine about space in Thailand, uh, it starts, would say that almost 50 years, but that is mainly on the research purpose. We got the first ground station in Southeast Asia, like almost 40 years in Lat Krabang near Suvarnabhumi Airport.
Mm,
Yeah, but that one is mainly for research purpose. And then the organization that officially titled Space Agency of Thailand is GISTDA was 23 years.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but this is the government section part. But actually, if you have aged more than 35 years, I think most of us we know about our first satellite called Thaicom. That is the telecommunication satellite that right now Thaicom, they are private company, right? And they developed their satellite until now. We got like eight Thaicom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 already. So eight satellites for Thaicom. But GISTDA itself, right now we have only two satellites, and we have the third satellite in early next year.
Oh, okay. So there's two being planned, first and one next year.
Yeah.
So when those two launch, then Thailand will have 10 satellites.
Oh, no, no, no. Actually, in Thailand, when we talk about satellite, we can imagine about a big satellite like Thaicom made or GISTDA made, but we can imagine about the very small one we call a cube, like 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter. So it's very small one, but that one we can call satellite already. So far, Thailand, we have almost 20 satellite already, both for
Oh.
operation one and the research ones.
Oh, wow, wow. That's interesting. I don't think anyone would think that there's
Yeah,
20 satellites floating
yeah,
around up there.
yes.
Are they geostationary, or do they orbit around the Earth?
Geostationary, they are only from Thaicom. That so far we have only eight satellites from Thaicom, but the rest are we call LEO orbit or non-geostationary orbit. So it's much lower than the geostationary orbit.
Oh, the low Earth orbit ones,
Yeah,
yeah.
even the satellite from GISTDA is also the LEO or low Earth orbit satellite.
So what happened 23 years ago for the government to decide that they needed to form GISTA? Was it just sort of a more of a purposeful focus on the benefits that space technology could bring to Thailand?
Yeah, actually, uh, we know the benefit of space, but we didn't mention it like space at the beginning, but we mostly call it geoinformatics. That is the data or the utilization of the data from space. Mainly we use it for the mapping. You have to use kind of the image from satellite to make the map, or we can have the image from satellite to predict or prevent some kind of the disaster like flood or damage from the forest fire. Yeah, this is kind of thing that we can gain the benefit from satellite. So I would say that the thing in Thailand starts from that point, and the program is gradually developed, not very fast. We don't like have the big budget to have the big program like the leading country.
So I imagine the Thaicom satellites are mostly communications. Is that
Yes,
is that correct?
yes, yes,
Yeah. And the smaller 10 by centimeter by 10 centimeter satellites you mentioned, those are the research satellites, right?
yes. It's mainly for research purpose. Hmm.
Right. So those are the ones that give you data for forest fires, floods. What other kind of benefits do they give Thailand? I imagine you could do things like track illegal logging or illegal development. There's always things in the newspaper about building on protected land and national parks and things like that. So what types of data can these satellites provide you, and how do you use it to keep things safe, keep people safe?
Yeah. For example, we like to protect our territory, for example, and the image from satellite can have the track that you can see the past, but it happened. For example, the territory between border between Thailand and our neighboring countries. If you see the history of our satellite image, we can identify where the border, where exactly the border. So this is kind of we can have the trace back what was going on in the past.
Right. And I also imagine it gives you up to date information too. Like a lot of the times, I love messing around on Google
Mhm.
Maps, but a lot of the times, especially in some lesser developed areas, you can only, the most recent photo is 6 years ago or 10 years ago or
Yeah,
something, which doesn't really help you if you're trying to plan out territorial integrity or, forest fire prevention or something like that. So I imagine it's really good for you guys to have up to date data as well.
hmm, yeah.
What kind of equipment and instruments do these small little satellites have? What do they do? Do they just like send out radar or lidar? I don't know what the terms are, but how do
Okay,
they work?
okay. So imagine about the big satellite, like what Thaicom do. They are mainly communication satellite, right? But the smaller one, like what GISTDA we have, the satellite with the camera payload.
Is it just a visible spectrum camera, or is there like does every camera can it do ultraviolet, infrared, all those things?
Yeah, it can be anything depending on what you design on the satellite, what the power you need, what the specification of the size of the satellite. But the camera there many things like the infrared one, near infrared, the multispectral, or even like the now they can track even the PM2.5 sensors that they
Mm.
put on the camera, or recently they can even track the carbon capture that translates from the data from satellites as well.
That must be really interesting because the carbon capture is part of something called ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, which is
Yes.
sort of something that every big company in the world now is
Mm.
having to include in their operational strategies. You
Hmm.
know, you have to comply with ESG principles. So, I mean, does just work with any big Thai companies to share information and guide them on how to develop those kinds of things?
Yeah, so as a government agency, we have to encourage and also make them have the knowledgeable in this kind of the satellite data as well, because it's I think it's very new for them and new for everyone in the world. So a big role for us is make them understand the benefit from space data, satellite data. Now, the big company in Thailand, they have more and more contact to us to what kind of the satellite image can make the business happen, can facilitate, and
Oh, interesting. So they're slowly learning that this kind of data is beneficial when they develop their corporate strategy and growth and things like that.
yes, yes, yes,
Oh, interesting. You know, it's funny. The first time I ever heard of satellites being used in this way was, I think it was a book I read years and years ago,
yeah,
and it was about how McDonald's used satellite imagery of the development of neighborhoods to plan their future restaurants where for
yeah,
major population
yes,
penetration.
yes. So I would say that in you can find in any research that the value from space is not directly from the satellite itself or the launcher that we might mostly imagine about the space program, but the benefit, the value, mostly they are from the data from space, mostly we call downstream. For example, how can we utilize the data for your business, for your value of the country, etc.
How do you define the space economy, and how does that tie into to Thailand's prosperity?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, so to make you understand space, it's not just only the satellite or launcher, rocket, but it's the utilization of the space data. Like I mentioned about the flood, if you can predict earlier uh, to the flooding in Thailand, I think we can have very well plan for the prevention, or like the forest fire.
Hmm.
This is an example for the government sector. But imagine about the business. For example, you use the navigation satellite. I think if every time you go to other place, you use Google Map, right? Or you have to
Yeah.
uh, jog every morning. You track your pace, your route with your watch, and that is based on the GPS signal that from directly from satellite. So this is why we like to highlight that it is the economy happen and based on the space data.
Right. That's interesting. I think a lot of people open an app and think it's magic or something like that, but they don't realize there's thousands of scientists like yourself working behind the scenes to actually make it
Yeah,
happen, right?
yeah. So I would
Yeah.
imagine that I think now 80% of Thai population, we can directly access to space. Imagine about your iPhone, right? You now sometimes there's a pop up like allow me to like have the access location, something like that. This is ask you to access to space directly. You can imagine about that
Hmm.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Does I mean it's easy to think. I mean, satellites don't care about borders,
mhm.
lines drawn on maps. So that GPS data or something like that that I get when I order my salad, would that come from a Thai satellite, or does it come from a bunch of different satellites? How do you share that with other agencies and countries?
Yeah, for like the navigation satellite we use mostly from the US. Yeah, and it's not only from Thailand. Of course,
Mm,
the data that we use mostly not from Thai satellites. We use the international one. Hmm.
right, right. But like you said, there's a lot of downstream stuff from Thai satellites
Yeah,
too, whether it's pollution or
yeah,
flooding or things like that. Yeah,
yeah. But that one,
yeah.
imagine that if we have the data from our own satellite, we can very rapidly access to the data. If you don't have that kind of thing, we have to wait for the partner satellite, and that might take like 3 days. And imagine about the flood. 3 days of the data, maybe the flood to your house already. Yeah, so this is important
Right.
that we should have our own satellite in country. Yeah.
When I was going to get married in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and every at the end of November, and every day we would see the images of the floods that were getting closer to Bangkok on the map,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
they were getting closer and closer and closer, and
Yes.
eventually I postponed my wedding into 2012 because we weren't sure what was going to happen. So
Yeah. Yeah. This is the thing.
I guess that would be considered me taking part of the benefiting from the space economy.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Are you allowed to talk about the budget for GISTA? I'm not sure. I'm sure that's probably online somewhere, but how does that work?
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, GISTDA, we are a government agency. We mostly get a budget from the government, and also we have some budget from the fund that get it from government. And the third part, we can earn or have the profit from our stuff as well. For example, we can share our satellite images. We can have the solution from the data from space to our clients.
I'm just looking at an article from last year, and it said that the government has set aside a budget of 700 million baht for GISTA to build satellite projects to boost the economy. A 4-year fund from 2023 to 2026, allowing it to increase human resources in space technology and strengthen partnerships to improve efficiency in producing space technology and creating satellites. So 700 million baht, is that sort of roughly correct?
Yeah, but I would say that is the pack of the budget that might be the plan, and uh, in fact, it depends on the situation of the government. It depends on the program that we propose on that period. Yeah,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
No, we all know how Thailand works. So every time there's a new government, whether it's
Mm-hmm,
an election or a coup or whatever,
mm-hmm.
do you have to fight for your, like, hey, we got this much last year, we want a little bit more this year? Does a new government come in and say, oh, we don't see the value in just us, so let's lower their budget? Do you have to fight for stuff like that whenever a new government comes in?
Yeah, so mostly we have to educate them that this is the program that continue from the previous. What we like to make it more tangible, we call the National Space Plan to have the big picture what Thailand should go in the near future or in like 20 years. That is the thing that we like to let them understand more what's going on in Thailand, and can allocate budget in each year.
It sounds like you spend a lot of your time educating companies, government.
Yeah, so like like I mentioned, like I think it is the thing initially that we talk today. Space is not the thing that everyone touch and everyone know at the beginning by heart, like not like
Hmm.
agriculture. We okay, we have a lot of farmer, we have to spend like the I don't know the budget for farmers. But space is like it's not popular yet.
Yeah, you don't see it touching your lives. Everyone knows
Yeah,
there's farmers.
yeah,
Everyone knows there's people on the delivery bikes, but you can't observe a satellite or things like that.
yeah, yeah.
How a satellite, like you come up with an idea for a new satellite.
Mm-hmm.
We got to launch this new thing. It's going to be great. It's going to benefit us in so many ways. What's the process? What happens between that idea and launching it into space?
Okay, so the very beginning point is we have to hear from the stakeholders what the need from them. Imagine that government have very limited budget and we can have two or three satellites in 10 years. How can we build the satellite that make more benefit from the stakeholders? So the very beginning phase, we have to understand the need from private sector, the need from government sector. So from that point, we have the design of our requirement, and from that point, we have to design the proposal and ask for the budget. And technically, when we got the budget, we have to develop our satellite or space program. That can be either way the way that we built by ourselves or the way that we can have the international collaboration like we did earlier, we did before, like we did with
Mm.
France before. And I think in the future we have more capability. Right now we have like a pack of engineers that can build satellite by ourselves. So I think from now on we try to build a capacity in Thailand. So the satellite should be mainly build and even find the supplier of the satellite part in Thailand, and then but the very hard part is still the launch and put the satellite to the rocket and launch it to the space in the orbit. So this part in Thailand is not very well established. So we still need the launcher from the leading country. For some time, we still have the program called Space for Thailand that we imagine about how can we build the rocket and the launch pad or launch site in Thailand. So this is in the plan, but it's very, very long-term plan for Thailand.
Wow.
And then once we got the satellite in the orbit, so I think it's like the normal operation. We get the data and we utilize the data, and now how can we utilize the data as much as possible? We have to let them know, educate them how to use the data from satellite.
First, they got to sort out the train connection between Utapao and Suvarnabhumi, and then they can
Yeah,
s- then they can build a space launch.
yes, yes. But I can add some point to that. Why some of other country they are interested to Thailand to be the launch site because actually in Thailand we are very near equatorial area.
The equator, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we concern that this point is a good one for the good location because it saves energy to launch to space. And
Okay.
also in the southern part of Thailand we have the part near the sea. Imagine about the drop zone of the rocket that will drop into the sea, not to our home. Yeah.
Or your neighbors, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's interesting because whenever someone talks about Thailand, they say, "Oh, it's geographically very well located for tourism to other countries." But again,
Mhm.
no one ever says it's also geographically very well located to launch satellites as well.
Yeah, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Have you heard of Spin Launch, the Spin Launch program in the States?
Ah,
It's
okay.
it's it's this company that basically what they do is they attach a satellite to
Yeah,
like an arm that
yeah,
swings around in a circle like thousands of RPMs, and then
yeah.
at the exact right moment, it lets go of the satellite and it flies straight up into the air.
Yes, yes, I have read it, but I think it's still in the development program. So I would say in the space program, everything is still possible. So let's the imagination can be happen one day.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, like
That's
I
interesting.
remember like 2 days ago, there's the big launch of the Starship from SpaceX. Yeah,
Hmm.
launcher. This is like the ever human made the launcher is very huge one, is big one. So you can imagine about the development of the space program right now is going very fast, and I think the access to space will be more and more easy in the future. Yeah,
Oh, that's good. That's good.
yeah.
So finishing up then, what do you think Thailand's connection to space will look like in 50 years, in 100 years? Or what do you
Uh,
hope it will look like?
yeah. So this is my personal point of view. Thailand, I think we have the good point in terms of the geographic location. I think if we have the good pace for the space program, we can have the full system of the space program in Thailand, like the satellite manufacturing, the launcher even in Thailand in the near future. I think that's one concept of Elon Musk as well, and they need the space on
Mm.
all over the world. And Thailand can be a good spot for like the traveling by the rocket. Imagine people from New York to Thailand can be it's not from airplane anymore, but can be another type of the rocket. It can be imagined in like 50 years in the future. Why not?
Right, right. And it's not just Elon Musk, it's Blue Origin, it's Virgin Galactic. That seems to be the next frontier that people are pushing for, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yes,
Wow, I can't imagine coming in on a flight from Singapore and then having to divert because there's a flight coming in from space. That's a pretty neat thought.
yes, yes.
Well, Dr. Natthawat, that's really interesting. What a cool insight into something I think that people don't know a lot about in Thailand. So, listeners, next time you're checking the PM 2.5 before you go out for the day or ordering a hamburger on Grab, you have people like Dr. Natthawat to thank. So, thank you for coming and chatting. That's really interesting, and maybe in another 20 or 30 years, I'll bump into you in holding a ticket for space tourism or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Greg, for inviting me here for Bangkok podcast.
So, dude, I knew Thailand had communication satellites, cell phone stuff, but this is much more extensive than I thought. Like, I actually really, essentially, this is the Thai version of NASA, which I didn't even know existed. I got to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff. It's pretty interesting. I think Thailand, like, it's one of the perks of doing this podcast, right? We always discover
Right.
something about Thailand. We're like, what? I had no idea. And this is one of them.
Exactly. Right. I had no idea this existed at all.
Yeah. Now, unlike the USA, most countries don't have billions of dollars to throw at, space
Correct.
technology and stuff
Correct.
like that. But they do some pretty cool stuff. Dr. Natawat was talking about, these cube satellites. And I think it's cool that like we all just take it for granted. We whip out the app on our phone and we're like, what's the AQI today? And what's the
Sure.
traffic look like? It's all done with satellites and all with the help of him and his team. It's pretty cool.
Well, what this reminds me of, when I talk to my students about Thailand's kind of place in the world or where Thailand ranks, against other countries. The ironic thing is, I think both foreigners and Thai people rank Thailand lower than it belongs.
That's interesting. I think you might be right.
We've had previous shows. We've had multiple economists on the show, and people are always quick to point out, oh, Thailand is a developing country, or some people refer to Thailand as a poor country. But listeners, you might remember if you've listened into our past shows that out of roughly 200 countries in the world, like Thailand's economy is about 24th or 25th, depending on the year, and that's almost in the top 10%. I mean, that's in the top 15%.
Right.
So in the world, like essentially Thailand's economy is a B plus.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people forget that, and even Thai people don't think that way. Like my students are always like, when I ask my students, well, why doesn't Thailand do this? They're always like, oh, we're a small country, we're a poor country. It's funny. This is in the Thai, in kind of the Thai attitude. But man, being 25th out of 200, that is not bad. You that's not being at bottom. That's not like the bottom. That's far from the bottom of the barrel. So
That's right. They do pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. So, so the idea that Thailand actually has a space program, it's not like they're about to put a man on the moon, but it should not be that surprising. But there's a lot of stuff like this that I just didn't know about.
I recently read about, I just tried to Google it really quickly, but I can't find it right now. But Thailand also has a nuclear reactor.
I didn't know that either.
It's a research nuclear reactor. It's like at the Institute of Nuclear Technology or something like that. But it's a real
Is it fired up? I mean, is it running?
Yeah. And I thought about ways to get to talk about someone on the show about that, but I don't know. So
that's a good thing. I mean, it's a good example of what we're talking about. That
right.
I just think in general, Thailand is more developed than people realize, including Thai people.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, it's all thanks to people like Dr. Natthawat. He's doing some pretty cool stuff, and
for sure.
Very, very smart guy. So thank you, Dr. Natthawat, for coming on and chatting and updating
Absolutely.
us. So next time you're outside and looking at some of the apps on your phone, say a quick thank you to
look up and wave at the Thai satellite.
That's right. Wave to the good doctor. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's do something we call Would You Rather, where one of us picks two contrasting situations tied to Thailand to debate and choose which one we'd prefer. And this week, Ed, I'm going to ask you a question. This is something that I think most regular people probably wouldn't really have that big of a hand in doing, but it's interesting to see what you think about this. Now, I don't know what it's like where you come from, but where I come from in Canada, like recycling is a big thing, right? Like you got to put your papers over here, your certain plastics over here, you got to put your glass over here, yeah. And so it's a bit of a rigmarole when you do your garbage, but it all ends up in the right place. Whereas Thailand, recycling happens on the curb, right? Like everyone just throws their garbage together, and then you have people that come by, and you got a cardboard guy that collects all the cardboard, and you got a glass guy that collects all the bottles.
Okay.
So which one of these would you rather live in? Which one of these systems would you rather live in? Like the onus is on you to do it, so it's a lot more work for you, and you're recycling, versus Thailand, where you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, but...
Interesting question. I mean, Thailand does have, it depends on where you are, but some places in Thailand will have, 2, or I think the most I've ever seen is 3 waste bins.
Right.
Where, so Thailand, in some places, there is an onus on you, like stuff that could be recycled or not. But in general, it's not that widespread. So you're right. In general, it's kind of like you throw stuff away.
Right. And then it's like, well, I hope it gets recycled, I guess. I don't know.
That's right. Well, okay. My answer really comes, obviously convenience-wise, from my perspective, like Thailand is better. But I'm curious, I'm guessing it's more effective. I mean, I know very little about recycling, so I would probably try to play, my answer would be whatever's better for the environment. So I'm guessing that what do you think? I'm guessing the Western way of having consumers separated is probably more efficient. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more efficient, but also I was kind of noodling this over in my head too. I mean, Thailand is the hub of all these informal economies, right? So you've got this sort of informal recycling economy that's run by all these random people who do the recycling for you. So there's an economic benefit to the system as well. So
like creating jobs, you mean? Like interesting. That's an interesting take. It's kind of like I can't remember, God, it's been a long time since we talked about this, but I got into an argument with a buddy of mine about busing your tray at McDonald's. And he was saying that actually McDonald's have Thai staff that picks up the trays. Whereas as Westerners, we think it's like our duty to put the trays away. But he was saying, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Like you should leave your tray on the table because that's what Thai people do, because they have staff that do that. So if you take it upon yourself to do it, you're actually taking a job away from a Thai person, right? So you're suggesting if we divide our own trash, we're denying a Thai person a job.
Yeah, but also if we separate our own trash, it won't even matter anyway because there's not the infrastructure to handle it. So it's not even really an option, is it?
Huh. Well, I mean,
like
but
if I put,
well, there must be some kind of but you're saying Thai people are taking stuff out of the trash, so there must be some infrastructure, right?
No, I mean like at home. Like in Canada, we have like a blue bag for glass. You have a black bag for wet garbage. You have a green bag. You put them all in separate
Understood.
bins, right?
Understood.
Yeah.
But you're saying in Thailand that other people are going through the garbage and separating stuff out, correct?
Right, but there's no system in place where I can do that effectively. Like,
Oh, I understand. Okay, I get it. Well, in some places there are different garbage bins, but in general, you're right. I mean, I'm for me, it's whatever works better, whatever's better for the environment. So
Sure.
I'm just guessing it's more efficient to have the consumer do it. So I guess I would. I mean, obviously, it's easier. The Thai way is just easier. So from a lazy man's perspective, I'd rather do the Thai thing. But probably the right thing is put a burden on the consumer to separate it. I guess I don't know.
I'm gonna go the other way. I think it's probably because what do I know about PET versus PVC or whatever it is, the different types
Oh,
of
I
plastics.
see. Right. Yeah.
But I did work on a project at my job recently where I was working with this project that interviewed people who collect plastic bottles on the beaches and stuff in Thailand. And
Okay.
they said that very quickly they pick up on this one is this type of plastic, that one is that type of plastic,
sure.
this one is not
Well,
recyclable.
it's
So they're the pros. And what do I know about it? So maybe just leave it to them.
That's a good point. No, it's a good point. I mean, I wish I knew more about the subject. I don't really know much about it. So whatever. I guess I would rather do the one that ends up being better for the environment. That's
Right.
how's that for like a lawyerly answer?
Yeah, I agree, but maybe the Taiwan is sort of more beneficial
be.
to local economies. I don't know.
Could be, maybe, could be, for sure.
Yeah, interesting.
So, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we'd like to say thank you to Leo Karanen for lending us his support at the show shoutout level. Greg, what did you find out about Leo?
Well, our buddy Leo, we've known him for a long time, but he finally became a patron. Remember he was producing painted masterpieces at our recent meetup we had a few years back.
Correct.
Where we were drinking lots of wine and painting gorgeous photos. So we've known him since then. We've hung out a few times, but he wrote a really interesting message to me, and it's no surprise that he has a background in marketing because he really sold himself here. And he sold himself in such a way that it makes me feel like a lazy ass. So
Well, that's not hard, to be honest.
Hey, how dare you? I blame it on my knee. So check this out. Leo left the corporate world in Los Angeles for the island life and jungle trails of Koh Samui via a circuitous and adventurous route that took him through Europe, Israel, Jordan, and Bali over 10 months when he finally arrived in Bangkok, Christmas 2019. He got a job at, check it out, Agoda, just in time for the pandemic. That's when they kicked my ass out the door. I guess they got out with the old,
Right.
in with the new, you know?
That's right.
So after a few years of that rigmarole, he traveled from the most southern tip of Thailand to Betong and the northernmost tip to Loy, and then around the Isan on a motorbike. In that year, Leo decided to do his 200-hour yoga teacher training at the Orion Healing Center
Nice.
on Koh Phangan, followed by another 200-hour yoga teacher training on Koh Tao, where the focus was on sound around spinal pranayama, deep meditation, and samyana. Those sound like curries to me, but I don't know. Maybe you can make more of that than I do. Is that a lot of time? 200 hours to learn how to be a yoga practitioner?
I think it's one of the standard certifications. Yeah, it's kind of cool that he did 2 of them, though.
Really? Wow, it sounds like a lot of time. Well, Leo is currently the general manager at Visit Natural Detox Resort in Koh Samui, Thailand. He has a bachelor's degree in East Asian Studies and International Relations with a concentration on Japan, an MBA in International Marketing, and an MA in Southeast Asian Studies with a
Damn.
concentration on Thai and Laotian history. Damn, Leo!
Heck yeah.
Making me feel like a
He-
slacker. And if you're
he's
interested in
making
that
us
kind of
look bad.
stuff, yeah, no doubt. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, he can be found on Instagram at Leo Kii. So there you go.
I like that.
200 hours to learn how to be a yoga teacher. Isn't that
Times
more than you
2.
need to learn how to be a cop in North America?
That's probably about right. Anyway, thank you, Leo.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. And Ed, you're the yoga guy. You got to make it down to Koh Samui and do
I'd
a
love
couple
to.
of courses.
I'd love to do that for sure.
Get a few more patrons. We'll put it on the. We'll expense it.
Alrighty. A final thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Oh, yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on threads at BKKGreg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there, especially your knees, because when they go, life starts to suck. And we'll see you back here next week.
No doubt. So my levels looked okay on the waveform anyway. Has my audio still going in and out or no?
Yeah, occasionally. Sorry, I'm going to put a pillow on my seat. I think my chair is starting to get a bit... Ah, that's nice.
I mean, if it happens on a waveform unbeknownst to me, maybe at least maybe when you normalize, it might flatten it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it usually does. All hail normalization.
Heck yeah.
And the difference between volume and loudness, which I still don't entirely understand.
I don't know the difference between that.